All right, what we're going to talk about here is secure robotic process automation. Notice that keyword there, secure RPA. What normally happens is RPA is just a tool that runs some tasks. It does things routinely. And a lot of times it requires like logging in, different pages, things like that. So what I'm going to highlight is my RPA logging into AWS Identity Center with MFA turned on. A lot of folks are always complains about it in their reporting, to customers. They're afraid to turn on the root account because they don't know how to do MFA, things like that. This is going to be a demo of RPA getting into AWS Identity Center using MFA. The key here, most of the time, RPAs have static files where things are statically stored, passwords and usernames. Sometimes, if people are smart, they'll vault them, but most of the time they don't. So, what I'm going to highlight is a recommendation from Britive. If you're going to use RPAs, at least separate out username and password from MFA. What Britive is doing is I've issued two different tokens to the RPA to allow it to access Britive. All it can do with those tokens is access Britive. It has no other access than to do that. What Britive does when these RPAs try to access Britive is it says, are you meeting the controls, the policy controls? Are you on an IP that we trust? Is it within working hours? Are you within a contracted time frame? Should we enforce MFA step up when we give you something, and should we include human approvals? The key here is the separation of the two, right? Password and OTP MFA, and then enforcing those security controls. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So here's what I mean. When you use a tool like Tag UI, you just generate these playbooks, if you will. They call them flows. And in these flows, what normally happens is people are hard coding passwords. All you're seeing here is the two different tokens that I've given the RPA to access Britive and fetch what it needs, whether it's the OTP and it's the password. So let's go ahead and kick this off so you can see it in action. Again, Tag UI opens up a browser window, and the browser window does what we ask it to do. In this case, I'm going to log into AWS Identity Center. I'm not typing, just know the RPA is in the background running all these tasks for me. It's following the flow, it's populating the username, clicking on next. It's now fetching the password from Britive's vault, and I'll show you after the fact what that means. It went through all the policy controls of whatever it needed to fetch the password from the vault, and it's populating it. The RPA again is doing this itself. It's going to go to the next screen. This is where it's fun though. I've actually separated out the MFA. This is where I'm saying use a separate token to go fetch the one-time password to log into Identity Center. Isn't that amazing, right? So the process went all the way through. And again, if you use Britive, even in Identity Center, we give you your privileges just in time. You don't even have static authorized privileges. I can distribute those here in Britive. The key, though, the takeaway for this is exactly that, right? I have different controls that have different limits on who can access what. This case, the security key is allowed to do these things, and I can enforce IPs. The most important thing, though, on top of this is that auditability. Now we can see all these things that these tokens have done at different times, including viewing secrets. That's a really awesome way to just round it out and say RPA access can be done securely and done using MFA.